Hey friends, this is Joseph Maynor. So what I want to do in this video is I want to do the next video kind of somewhat following my last video, but also integrating everything I've experienced in the last couple of weeks. So in the first place, I want to say today is my birthday. So I turned 48, guys. Can you believe that? I'm edging on 50, but you know what's weird is that I was more scared of 30 than I am of 50, believe it or not. When I turned 30, that was a big shock. Actually, 40 too. 40 was a big shocker. But I know a lot of you guys, you think 50 is old, but I definitely sort of don't feel old. And I'm grateful for that. So it's my birthday today. We're coming close to Christmas. So I want to wish everybody, happy Christmas. I went to the Dickens Fair this year, which was really fun. The Dickens Fair, this is going to allude to basically what the title of this video is going to be on. It's going to be on art. It's going to be on beauty ultimately. All right. And the sort of distinction between love and beauty as different things. Ultimately, it's not going to be, but I'm creating something that I think is actually useful. And so, the Dickens Fair is basically going back into the late 1800s, and it's everything about that. It's at the Cow Palace here in San Francisco. Actually, there's a Renaissance Fair up in Marin County too, right, that you can attend, which is very similar. But we'll get into why this is important. So I attended the Dickens Fair. And it taught me a lot about art. Actually, it kind of confirmed some things I already knew, but then it also, taught me a lot more that I didn't know. So what I want to do in this video is I want to riff off of the last video that I did, which is that truth is a double-edged sword. What I want to do in this video is I want to translate that or extend that into love is a double-edged sword. Because in my sort of looped life coach model, I like to break truth, love, beauty, and wisdom apart. Right? Yes, you can think of them all as one thing, but you can also break them apart too. It's a paradox, right? And also hierarchy and no hierarchy is a paradox too. In other words, some people say, well, these aren't in a hierarchy or these are in a hierarchy. It's like both and not even. Both and not even too. Right? So it's like, I feel like there's this unconsciousness of creation that's fundamentally at issue here. And when you merge things together like truth, love, beauty, wisdom, you merge all those together, it's hard to see things. It would be like learning calculus before you learned algebra, trigonometry, geometry even, pre-algebra. It's like you just put everybody in the calculus course straight off the bat. Nobody's going to understand anything. So there is a sense in which process is important. Although these things, process is a creation. It's like whose process, right? Ultimately, it's going to be your process, but that's a realization, right? And to have that without too much ego it really is an accomplishment, right? Something that we all strive toward for a variety of different kinds of reasons, right? So why is love a double-edged sword? Well, first of all, let's explain what love is. Love is care. Love is, I want to say relation. You and me, we may have differences, but we can still hang out. I don't need to agree with you to hang out with you necessarily. Now, there's boundaries to this too. Like let's say somebody is trying to take advantage of me or trying to hurt me, right? Well, then temporarily I may decide not to hang out with you, but that doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you don't deserve to be here, right? You may just have had a bad day. You may have viewed me as a target in the moment, right? But if you got to know me, on my best behavior, you might like me. On my worst behavior, you might want to kill me, right? I mean, I'm not saying that anybody would want to kill me, but I'm just saying that, like, this idea that love is unconditional is a myth. But that doesn't mean that love dies as a value to strive for in this work. Love is very, very powerful. And what's even more powerful than love is when it's buttressed by truth. So when you have love backed up by truth, that's a very good place to be in life. But when I want to argue, even though that's true, and congratulations if, and I don't want to like congratulate you too much, right? Because, there's a lot of, people who think they have this when actually they really kind of don't. But, you can see this in somebody's behavior. Love isn't so much about what you say, it's how you act. But the problem with this is, just like truth, this is a shackle as much as it is a wonderful, beautiful thing. Because the reality is, like, creativity is larger than love, or beauty. It's larger than love. But the best place to come at creativity, to the extent that this is possible, but also this rule set too this is just my model, right? This rule set doesn't apply, but it's still something that you can look at, right, in your own life and just kind of as a measuring stick. We like measuring sticks, don't we, in anything we do? So it's just something that you can consider is, what if I became a conscious creator more in my life? So what's a conscious creator? Well, a conscious creator is somebody who's integrated truth and love and who's also creating. Now, this does not mean you're always going to be perfect, right? You might tell a nasty joke. You might get fired from a job, right? You might get broken up with in a relationship. Somebody might ban you from their community. You're still going to deal. You're going to die, right? I mean, that's the worst one, right? You're going to have to pay taxes every year. You're going to have to work some kind of a gig. I don't care what it is, right? You got to pull in some kind of money, whatever it is, right? So we look at survival, then we look at kind of higher consciousness and how there's really no duality between those. But as you do this work, you're going to align these things more with consciousness, and you're going to align them more with creation. And so this is what conscious creation points to. And so I guess we're about a third of the way through the video. Let me kind of lay out the thesis statement here, just because I think that that's what's appropriate. I'm totally improvising this video, guys, by the way. So, but before I do that, I want to say, thank you to actualize.org and Actuality of Being, right? These are two online communities that I've basically been participating in and listening to, among other real life relationships that I have and things that I do. All of this is kind of factoring into the maelstrom or the crucible from which the creation of this video is kind of inspired by. But the thesis statement of this video is that beauty actually transcends both truth and love in one way, right? In the sense that I want to create this for you. this is just a creation. It doesn't have to be what you think. It doesn't have to even be the truth. It doesn't have to, blah, 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 blah. Right, it's just a creation. But I want to take you on a trip here, and I want to kind of point out certain things that I think are useful and were actually useful to me in my growth. So just give me 1 second. All right, friends, welcome back. So I think the first thing that I want to say is that coming back from Thanksgiving, it's actually taken me a while now to get up the nerve to make this video, even though I've thought about making this video now for like 2 weeks. Literally, I've wanted to make a video, but it just hasn't manifested. So I think one of the first things you have to learn, as an artist or as a creator is the issue of forcing yourself or not forcing yourself to create, right? So, sometimes it is good. I guess, it's a paradox, right? Sometimes it is good to like force yourself to like sit down and create something. Sometimes it's best to really be in tune with your intuition. And when your intuition says no, don't do it, right? It's when things align, when it's right and it's effortless. This is really when you do your best creating, although you're always creating. But when I'm talking about your best creating, I'm talking about performance art. Everything is performance art, guys. This is something I want you to, if we're going to move into beauty, we're going to move into conscious creation, we're going to move into art, you have to, and I know we all want to believe that we're authentic, but even moving into love, we learn the value of humor. This is how we get along with people that we disagree with, right? It's a show. It's a comedy. But it's also not, right? It's serious too, right? It's a paradox between seriousness and comedy. But there's really no duality between seriousness and humor. Now, those of you that are fixated on love, you're not going to like this, and I'll tell you why. One of the easiest ways to discredit somebody is when they tell a joke, you turn that against them. Like somebody tells a sexist joke or just a dirty joke or maybe even like a cringe joke or bathroom humor or somebody says some politically incorrect joke according to some standard or something like that. You can laugh, but you can also castigate that person as lacking love or even lacking truth. So even though humor is useful in the love stages, it's mostly used in the aid of the relation, of keeping communities together, holding relationships together, even the relationship with yourself. Self-love. You will use humor to maintain self-love too. Humor is ultimately one of the greatest bridges in the development of love, but it has to be used in service of love to be part of the sort of packet of love versus the packet of truth, where humor is seen as almost like you're not serious, right? Because people are so serious, right? When they, watch my last video. So anyway, but the problem with love is also not the final stage on the path, but a love integration is so very important to everything, right? I mean, to be able to have a love awakening is so powerful. I mean, I've basically been trying to share this with people for a while now. A lot of my videos have been on love for this very reason. I mean, I've been working on truth, love, but Why is love a double-edged sword? Well, because ultimately love is a limitation on creation. Now you may say, well, no, I mean, isn't feminine love like kind of like Spinoza? You know, it's all about kind of accepting everything the way it is and just surrendering to that. But you know what? Nobody does that. Okay, that's an archetype. That's a thought at best. Nobody does that. You could strive to do that better, but I would argue that that is not the highest realization or highest awakening you can have. So again, going back to the thesis that I'm proposing in this video is that beauty is higher than love. Love is higher than truth. Just consider this, right? This doesn't necessarily mean that this is true, but I'm taking you on a trip. I'm painting a picture. I'm telling a story. I'm performing. This is performance art, right? We're all performing. And also paradoxically, we're not performing. But to deny the fact that everybody is performing, I think is just, naive. I know you want to be exempted from looking like you're performing. Okay. So, but everybody is performing. The question is like, what are you performing? How are you performing? In what areas are you performing? So I want to introduce some terminology here. And I've done this in my prior videos. I don't want to take too much time on this, but so there's the artist, there's the art form, there's the artwork, and then there's the audience. And then there's the relation between artists. So for example, there was a cool question on actualize.org actually, like what is mathematics? And my answer to this is that mathematics is it's an art form, right? So I'm framing it that way. I'm not saying that's all it is. I'm just saying framing it that way is actually it's like interesting and also kind of entertaining and funny too. Like, I mean, all of the things like it's a story, right? Okay. So mathematics though, it's more than that though. It's like everything that we experience works this way. Like, so for example, let's look at mathematics. Those of you like, physics nerds or science nerds or math nerds out there, I could talk about jazz too. I could talk about art, but it is art. It's all art, right? So that's my point. So mathematics, somebody came up with 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Just like in jazz, somebody's, strum a string, they hammered 2 nails into, you got 2 2x4s, right? You create a string and you hammer one end of the string into one 2x4 and one end of the string into the other 2x4 and you pluck the string. Remember when you were a kid, you used to do that? You pluck the string and then you get a little rhythm going. Well, see, that's exactly what mathematics is, but it's a development. So for example, in any art form, there's the impetus, which is the creation of the sort of seed of a particular art form. And then once the seed is born, like certain systems will gravitate around that art form. They'll become inspired by it, first of all. You have to become interested in it, right? Not every system is interested in every art form. So like not everybody loves music. Some people love like graphic arts, right? So for example, I know Leo Gura loves, like graphic arts, I'm not interested in graphic arts at all, right? I'm interested in music though, analogously. So it's like people have different, sort of areas of artistic interest. Not every system is interested in every area of aesthetic interest. So, for example, you can make a list of the 10 things that you're interested in aesthetically. So, cooking, for me, like cooking, music, humor, conscious creation. There's a lot of things that I'm interested in, but I'm just saying that, like, I'm not interested in, like, really not that interested in many things. I'm not going to really go into detail about what those are, but you can do this for yourself. So every finite perspective, although it shares in infinity and it shares in with, truth and love, every finite ego or finite perspective has a different signature as to the sort of areas of interest it has, or art forms that it's interested in creating within. Some people like making movies. Some people like making model airplanes. Some people like, making wonderful, cuisine or food, right? Some people love making music. Some people love making YouTube videos. Some people love doing nothing, right? Some people love being a lazy slug. Some people love, listening to music, right? There's so many, and some people don't like listening to music. Music scares them or something, or some people they really like, kind of like, sort of perfecting an ideology almost, like you're some kind of a, Neo-Advaita person or something like that, right? Where you just want to really live this, there is no you, right? Like that's what you do, is you create in that. I look at that and I go, you're wasting your life, right? But see, that's just from my perspective. Like from that person's perspective, I'm an asshole. I'm a demon, right? I'm like, get this guy out of here. So this is why you need love, though. You need love to realize we're all different, but everything is one. But then you also need a beauty development where you realize even though consciousness is one and mystical, all of us have interests, and that's okay. And then, this raises the question of like the dark side of things, like the people who do nasty things, right? And these people violate love oftentimes. Like they haven't integrated enough love, right? Because love is about ultimately accepting the finite and the non-duality between the finite and the infinite. But people who are stuck on truth, these are the people who want to burn people at the stake, right? These people are bad. They're not, they're false. False leads to thinking that they're bad. Bad leads to thinking that they need to be banned or excommunicated or exterminated, right, ultimately. So love is a development upon truth in that sense. But even further is beauty. And this is the realization that love can actually block beauty because you're so interested in care, right? Love is very feminine. Truth, love, beauty, right? Truth is masculine, love is feminine, beauty is a further development. So the problem is it's really hard if you're, kind of a public figure or you're somebody who puts themselves out there to develop beauty, because you can be castigated for doing this, right? I mean, comedians get away with this because everybody knows they're a comedian. But like if you tell the wrong kind of joke at work, HR is going to fire you, right? If you, the ripples of karma mostly serve love. So you have to have a love integration before you can really consciously create from a beauty perspective. Because you definitely don't want to live a life of suffering where, somebody can ruin your life online. I've seen it done. right? And or try to. But ultimately, karma will fix that too if you're, a developed person, because other people will have your back. So this is what love is about, right? Love is about relationships, but you also need to support everybody too, right? And realize that people do bad things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. Like, people make bad choices. In their mind, it's a good choice. It's more like a short-term choice that they made, right? Like, it's good in the short term, but in the long term it fails. And it's something that they're going to have to learn from. I've done that too, and I've paid the price for that too, right? I've been, banned from communities and so on. But, but I'm just saying that, and I don't blame that for, you know what I mean? I look at that like that's just, you know what I mean? That's karma, man. That's the way reality unfolds. But you don't want to add unnecessary fuel to the fire there. So, but at the same time, you don't want to be like shackled by love. You want to be able to create without a shackle of love, because some people, people who don't have like truth or love integrated very deeply, they're running around like a chicken with its head cut off with creativity, and that's fine, right? We love that too, right? The freestyle, anything goes kind of comedy. That's fine when you're anonymous, but when you're having to show up in the real world, I mean, unless you're doing that in a very concealed way, which you can do. You can say, hey guys, let's meet in my house, no microphones, no video, no internet, no nothing, and let's just do comedy. You can do that on your own. That's what freedom is. But if you're in the public eye and you're trying to have a beauty awakening, I think it is very important that you have a truth and love prerequisite to this. And what I want to do in the last few minutes of this video is I want to give an account of both a feminine and masculine direction for beauty. That way you can have some kind of a map, even though it's a creation. You can have some kind of a map, and that will be the denouement or the climax of this video. And then we'll see where it goes as I do that. So just give me 1 second. All right, friends, welcome back. So just give me a few minutes to give you guys a little bit of a model here between feminine and masculine beauty. So feminine beauty is about bringing people together. You can see this, feminine love really is about care of the one. So feminine beauty would be like when I went to the Dickens Fair, which I really loved. So the Dickens Fair is held around this time at the Cow Palace here in San Francisco. It's actually located in, it is located in San Francisco. It's like the very most south portion, sort of like where San Francisco and Daly City come together. Daly City is the city that's, right underneath San Francisco. So they have the Dickens Fair at the Cow Palace. So the Dickens Fair has, I want to say, at least 100, maybe 200 artists working there, right? And it's all about recreating New Year's Eve. I think it's 7 p.m. on not New Year's Eve, but I'm sorry, a Christmas Eve rather. So it's 7 p.m. Christmas Eve. So everything is happy Christmas. It's all this stuff, and it's so amazing. It's like immersive art. It's immersive performance art. So they encourage you to, to kind of participate. And you'll be asked, they'll call you up on stage, all kinds of shit like that, To me, this is a perfect example of feminine beauty. We're all performance artists. We're all creating something for the greater good of everybody that involves love and it involves truth. And none of the art forms are separate. You'll see this, like the artists that are there, they're visual, they're musical, they're comedic. The art hasn't been sort of like sectioned out into like specialties yet at this time. It's a wonderful thing to see. Like singing, musical instruments, comedy, slapstick, eating, performance art. So when we were in line to get in, there was a madman, kind of outside, but he was an artist. But he's dressed up in total costume, but he looks like a madman. He's got all these like weird paints on his face. So the maid with the broom, like every kind of role is being put together for an immersive performance art kind of situation. It's there's also the Renaissance Fair too up in Marin County, which is kind of like this. But the thing is, this will teach you so much about how a beauty awakening is just a refinement of what's already occurring. Like we like to think of actors and artists as phonies. Well, I mean, then you're a phony, right? Because that's exactly what you are too. But you just haven't refined it into like a frame. You haven't put it in a frame. You haven't made like a video. You haven't made a performance. You haven't made an artwork. So there's an art form, and then there's an artwork, and then there's an artist, and then there's a relation of artists, and then there's right. So not even, but I'm just saying, like, so what feminine beauty is coming to terms with being a conscious creator or a creator in any kind of art form, like your job, right? Whatever it is. I mean, you could be a garbage man, right? Well, that's your art. There's an art form to being a garbage man, right? I mean, there really is. I mean, think about it. I mean, there's a way to do that job more or less elegantly, That's a role. It's like, when I was at the Dickens Fair, there were chimney sweepers because back in those days, everybody was burning fires. And so everybody needed a chimney sweeper. So there were artists dressed up as chimney sweepers. So it's not so much about like truth or love in the sense that like, it's not what you do. And it's not even the fact that we're all together. It's about creating together. So it's not about truth, it's not about love, it's about beauty. It's about creating together. Creating something together. That's feminine beauty. Now, what is masculine beauty in contrast? I like to think of masculine beauty as something kind of like jazz. Now, I answered a question on actualize.org. I think it was along the lines of like, what is something that people like kind of take the easy route on, not the hard route? And I listed jazz. What I want to do in the last part of this video is I want to explain this because I think this will be very good for explaining masculine beauty. So just give me 1 second. Hey friends, welcome back. So let me give the pretext to this. So over Thanksgiving, I went up to, basically to visit my family in Nevada, and I had a lot of time to really sit and think about and practice jazz. Stuff that like when you go somewhere and you bring one thing with you and that's all you do, like besides doing other stuff, like you're so focused on that one thing, you can have some insights about that, whatever it is. I mean, I do this all the time, like when I go travel, I'll just, try to think about one thing, and I don't try to do anything, but I'm just saying that, like, I end up doing that, and then I come up with some like really like significant insights about that one thing. So that happened to me with jazz. So just so you guys know, I've been playing jazz for like, I don't know, 15 years, probably 20 years, like if you add in, all the stuff I did in high school. And before that, I was in youth band. I've been playing trumpet since I was 10 years old, so, but, and I have my own ways of practicing at this point. And, I have a pretty deep understanding of theory. I've been playing jam sessions now since 2012. I don't know how many years ago that was, but whatever, over 10 years. So, but the question always becomes like, how do I practice jazz? And I shit you not, like up until now, I had some insight into it, but I wasn't completely like sure about it. But now that I have a deeper understanding of what masculine beauty is, I realize that jazz ultimately kind of encapsulates what masculine beauty attempts to do, which is to control the goalposts, but within a system of creation. So in other words, like, you can't get to masculine beauty until you've really developed feminine beauty. So until you've learned how to play with other musicians, you've learned how to get along with other creators, right? That's more like feminine beauty. We create together, right? Until you've kind of, embodied that, you're not really ready for masculine creation. Masculine creation is after you've learned that, after you've learned how to, like, you see this on online forums, where everybody's joking around, everybody's participating in the funny, right? The comedy, right? Is very much where everybody is participating and kind of riffing off of each other. That's very much feminine beauty. Masculine beauty is when you take your solo, right? You move the goalposts, you manipulate the goalposts. But if you haven't had these other things integrated, you're going to look like a devil doing this, right? You're not going to be seen as somebody who's operating at a high level in a particular art form, unless it's popular. But even if it's popular, it's still got to be good to survive. Nobody likes rancid food, right? Rancid food is not going to ever survive. So even if something is nasty, the fact that it survives means on some level it's good art, right? It's good creation. So, and you can see the stuff that survived the longest is the stuff that is seen as good for the longest, right? So you do have to have like love integration and truth integration really to have, strong beauty integration. And to have strong masculine beauty integration, you got to have strong feminine beauty integration. You got to know how to create as a performance artist with other people. But you can get to a point where you've done that long enough where you can become a soloist or a star attraction within the context of creation as a whole. So you're somebody who stands out. You take a solo, which means that you can be different in infinitely many ways as an individual. But you're standing on top of feminine creativity. And you're working with it as well. So taking a solo is really a good metaphor for masculine creativity. And you don't necessarily need to follow orders, but you need to know everything that's happening around you because you have to resolve properly. So for example, if you're playing a solo on a song, and you just do whatever you want, you could train wreck the entire song. So you can't train wreck it, right? It has to work for the entire tune too, in that metaphorically. Even though you're standing out as an individual and you're kind of moving the goalposts around as a creator, you still have all these other things underneath you integrated too, to where everything works, right? And so that's really the deepest form of conscious creation, if you want to look at it that way. And I'm not saying that beauty is the highest value. I'm just saying, this is something that you might consider working on or not, right? You might think of me as totally nuts, or maybe you're like, Joseph, you're just, way out there, or, you're blah, 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 blah. Just consider this just a story, right? I'm creating this. But it is something that touches my experience, or else why would I do this? Why would I say this, right? So it's something that inspires me to share, actually. And it's something that inspires me to work toward, too. Okay, friends? Hopefully this was a good video. I'm going to do another one of these on this, but next time we're going to move up to wisdom. So it's going to be the double-edged sword of beauty. It's going to be the next video. So you can see how this is a series. All right, friends. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.